Welcome to Logger Lectures Online, part of our series of digital lectures presented by the McMaster Alumni Association. These in-person and online lectures are named after McMaster graduate Albert Abram Logger, a great believer in the value of lifelong education. He created the Albert Abram Logger Foundation, which supports several organizations in their efforts, including the McMaster Alumni Association.
Unstructured search, and these algorithms were designed to
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Milena Head. I'm a professor of information systems at the DeGroote School of Business and the Wayne C. Fox Chair in Business Innovation, as well as the academic director of our executive MBA program at the DeGroote School of Business. I'm also very proud to say I am an alumni of McMaster University twice over. Thank you for joining us for this Logger Lecture Online. You will have the opportunity to ask questions throughout the presentation via the Q&A button. Type in your question and I will try my best to answer as many questions as possible in the allocated time at the end of my presentation. This evening's lecture is on identity theft, understanding and fighting the crime of the century. So let's get started. All right. What we're talking about today in our allocated time is what is identity theft, who are the victims and who are the thieves. How is this happening? By understanding how this is happening, then we can understand what we can do to better protect ourselves against this crime. So what is identity theft? Quite simply, it's any impersonation or misappropriation of an individual's identity. Why is this happening? Here's a number of different reasons, and it's just a small subset. Primarily, it's for financial gain. Also, it could be because they're trying to gain access to certain kinds of services or resources that they can't because they have bad credit or because they've got some bad marks on their record, such as applying for a job, leasing an apartment, or getting a passport. What are the implications for victims? Absolutely possible loss of money, but even more importantly, your reputation. Your false credit reports can be very difficult, very time-consuming to correct. That can result in some lost opportunities, even as extreme as some false arrests. And the last bullet point there, I've seen this a few times, where they really say that the emotional impact of identity theft has been found to parallel that of victims of violent crime. And if you think about it, that makes sense because what's being stolen here is you, and that's as personal as it gets. Who are the victims? So if you're thinking that, I'm never going to be a victim of this, it's somebody else's problem, think again. Our research shows that in Canada, you've got a 1 in 7 chance of becoming a victim of this crime. And in the title of this talk, we talked about the crime of the century. Well, it actually has been called the crime of the century because it is North America's fastest growing crime. And we're only in 2019, and already it's been given this label as the crime of the century. Another little true story of who the victims are. So here's an example where Trina McVeigh wanted to start a nest egg bank account for her newborn. To her surprise, she found out that her 2-month-old had black marks on his record for writing fraudulent checks. So some of you might be laughing, thinking, that's something that would be a one-off and would never happen again, and it got easily fixed. Well, actually, this is a very true story that happens over and over again. And children are the fastest growing victims when it comes to identity theft. And if we think about it, really, this crime can go undetected for years because children don't typically need to go and get ID or they don't request opening of accounts. So that's why you might not know for years. So this is why it's the fastest growing segment of victims. So who are the thieves? Many times people think that the thieves are hackers that are located in different parts of the world. Well, should you just be concerned about the hackers? You can probably see where I'm going with this. No. And this is a very surprising and concerning stat that says that our friends and our family actually account for 16% of the thieves. people that we know, people that are close to us, people that we welcome into our homes. 16% of the thieves are those people that we trust the most. Another alarming stat is 70% of the thieves are actually what we call trusted insiders. So not necessarily your direct family and closest friends, but people that have connections to the same things that you're connected to. Employees within the same workplace, they might be members of the same clubs or associations. They have easy access to that private information. 70% are coming from those trusted insiders. So how is this happening? I'll go through some examples of how this is happening. This is not a complete list. We don't have that much time this evening, but this will give you a sense of how it's happening so we can start to talk about how do you help to protect yourself. And interestingly, even though we think it's going to be those hackers that are halfway across the world, still the most common way is the most low-tech way. Dumpster diving, going through your trash. Those credit, those bank accounts, those statements, those Visa statements, those bank statements that you're throwing away because you're done, you've paid them, and you're putting them in your blue bin, and you're putting that out at the end of your driveway. Thieves that come by and they go through your trash to get this very personal, confidential financial information. It is still one of the most common ways that they're getting this information about you. The flip side is mailbox diving. So for those of you that are lucky enough to still have mailboxes attached to their homes, think about how long that mail is sitting in your mailbox before you get to it. It can be there all day. If you had a busy day, you might forget to get the mail, and it might be actually sitting there for a couple of days. Very easy for somebody to walk by, go through your mailbox, quickly pick out those bills, that personal financial information before you even get it. Next is shoulder surfing, in public and at home. So being able to peek over what's happening during transactions, as an example. Here we have a phone. We all have phones. They're great ways to communicate with each other, great ways to have the internet at your fingertips, great ways to take pictures of your dogs. Yes, those are my two dogs. But think about this scenario. You are at a grocery store and you're paying with Visa. So you put your Visa card down, the clerk is busy putting away your groceries into the bag, somebody behind you in line is on their phone. That's not an uncommon thing. Everybody seems to be on their phones when they're in lines. Well, do you know what they're doing on their phone? Perhaps in that split second, it doesn't take long, they've snapped a picture of your Visa card, which is right there, ready for them to be able to grab that information. Shoulder surfing happening very easily in those kind of situations. At home, this is our safe place. We talked about 16% of the thieves are your close friends and your family members. So where do you have your personal financial statements? Are they just sitting on your kitchen counter? Friends come over, family comes over, same thing. Somebody could very easily just snap a quick picture of your account information and they have that. 16%, remember. Switching. Another common thing that's happening, and I'll give you a little scenario. You go to the gym, great workout, you come back to your locker and you discover, oh, my locker's open. So the panic sets in and you get your wallet, you search through it, your money is there, you take a quick scan, all your cards are there, great, you must have left it unlocked, you're not gonna do that again. Weeks or months later, you start to see these charges made to your credit cards that weren't yours. You go back to your wallet, it might be a credit card that you haven't used in a little while. You take a closer look at it and you realize, this is not my card. It looks like my card, it might be from the same bank, but it might be an expired card for somebody else. So somebody has switched it out. If they just taken the card out, you would have noticed that there's a blank spot there. But by switching it, especially in Canada, where we only have a few banks, and they tend to look the same for the different banks. Blue is for RBC and green is for Canada, for TD. It's very easy to make those switches. It gives them more time to be able to charge against your good credit. Hacking. So yes, this is where people are actually going in and hacking and getting into your accounts. And it can be as simple as they are tracing the different keystrokes that you're typing in over networks that are not as secured. So just keep in mind that not all Wi-Fi networks are created equally. Be careful when you are in public places, like in a cafe. Great to text and perhaps do some web browsing, but not the right place to be doing your online banking. Online searching of publicly available data. More and more, we know there's so much information on the internet about just about anything and just about anyone, not just through Google, but think about everything you post on social media. Facebook as an example. Is there stuff that you have been posting on Facebook that might pertain to people knowing about when your birthday is, your mother's maiden name, who your first pet was, what city you were born in? What are you saying in your news feed that might relate to this? And if you think about it, this kind of information, these are typically the security questions that we have for a major financial accounts, whether it's our bank accounts or our credit cards. So you are releasing this information without realizing how it can be used against you. And there really is a new vocabulary out there. Phishing, schmishing, vishing, farming, all phrases that we wouldn't have heard of a few years ago. I'll go through these quickly just to give you some examples. The first one, phishing, which is going through emails. And I'm sure most of us have received these kind of emails. Here's an example, one which I received 15 years ago. It was my first one. I kept it. It was coming from RBC, which happens to be my bank. And they're telling me, we regret to inform you that your RBC debit card has been suspended if you don't re-update your account information. Click here, and they threaten termination, and they bring in user agreements. It sounds very official and very threatening. I knew a little bit better because I knew that there were some grammatical issues with this email, and probably RBC wouldn't have grammatical issues in their emails, but this was 15 years ago. And they've become more and more sophisticated since then. Some more examples. PayPal. Sure, love to buy stuff online, have a PayPal account. One's really tricky because they again say that, yep, there's been a problem, has come to our attention that your PayPal billing updates are out of order. Click here to verify your account. And then half the screen on the right-hand side, they talk all about how important it is for you to never provide your password to people you don't trust. They even say you should never give your PayPal password to anyone, including PayPal employees. So they spend so much time trying to reassure us, never do this. Oh, but make sure to click here to give us your account information. So very sneaky ways of trying to convince you or lure you into revealing this very confidential information. Here's one which I received. This is called spear phishing. So it's coming from an organization that you have a very tight link to, McMaster University. Yes, I'm an employee of McMaster University. I got this message in July of 2010. And there's a little bit of a story around this one. So July of 2010 was an interesting time for me. I received a promotion, so my title was changing. I was actually changing offices as well. I was going on sabbatical. So there's a lot of changes that were happening at that time, that particular month for that year. I get this email that says, this is to inform you that your McMaster University profile needs to be updated. And it made sense to me. Click to update your profile account. I did that. I clicked. I entered in my Mac ID and my password, which is my gateway to everything at Mac. As soon as I did that, I thought, oh, wait a second. I can't believe I just did that. And I share this story because I'm a researcher that's studying this. And I let my guard down, and yes, I was duped. And I'm sharing this because I don't want anybody to feel like they feel silly that, oh, I can't believe that I was duped into this, and I don't want to share that because I'm embarrassed. Don't be. It happens to all of us. And one last example, we're seeing more of these coming through, and some of you might have received some of these as well. It was from somebody that I know. It was from an acquaintance, not a great friend, but somebody that I have done quite a bit of business with. And he's telling me that apologies for having to reach out. I'm in London, his bag has been stolen, his password, his credit cards, his phone has been stolen, and he needs to get back to the country, but also he needs to pay his bills and his ticket, and can I please help out? Well, this is again now looking at taking advantage of the good nature that we have as human beings. So be careful for those that seem very personal and seems like it's coming from somebody that you know on a personal level. The next one. Smishing or SMS phishing. So similar kind of idea, but instead of coming through email, it's now coming through text. As some examples, you get a text from your bank, your statement is ready. If you go online, click here to view and manage your account. Another one where it's saying, oh, even more serious, your bank account has been suspended, click here. And one that's coming from Apple, your Apple ID has been locked, click here to restore full access to your Apple account. Somehow our guard goes down when it comes as a text. We're getting more used to the email phishing messages, but when it comes as a text and something very succinct and seems like it's coming from a trusted institution, then our vulnerabilities tends to go down. We tend to click on this. So be careful of this type of fraud as well. Next one, phishing. Very simple, just over the phone. And this is where they try to get you in because it's another person. And they sound very excited about this great opportunity, and they can be very persuasive, and they have been trained how to be able to persuade you to give out your personal confidential information. And I have received calls like this. Hello, is this Dr. Head? Yes, it is. Do you work at McMaster University? Yes, I do. Well, we have a great deal for you today. We can combine your credit cards for a very low interest rate. Sounds like a great deal. Yes, I would be interested. And next thing you know, you might be giving out some personal confidential information you should not be giving out over the phone. And our last example of this new vocabulary, farming. Redirecting you to a fake website. Here's just a couple examples. PayPal, Facebook, looks like the real thing. Absolutely, but it's not. They're luring you in because they've created this other site that looks just like the site you're familiar with. Things to watch out for. If you can see the URL there, that's not the URL for PayPal, and that's not the URL for Facebook. So if you're in doubt, shut down your window, bring it back up, type in the address that you know. And if you're entering anything that is confidential, make sure you look for that security padlock, that it has the right kind of encryption for that particular site that you would expect. So now that we understand how it's happening, let's turn to what you can do to help protect yourself from this crime. The 3 Ds, deter, detect, and defend. Let's start with the first one, deter. Carry only what you need in your wallet. Get into that habit of purging. Once a year, twice a year, go through your wallet and think about, do you really need to carry all of this stuff? If you've got your SIM card in your wallet, you definitely should not be carrying that. And a good practice is also to photocopy whatever you have in your wallet. So should something happen, you can immediately act on those things that you know were there instead of trying to guess, did I have that card or didn't I have my card within my wallet at that time? Next, shred, shred, shred. Invest in a good shredder. It is worth it. If you are second guessing to yourself, should I shred this or should I not shred this? Shred it. Remember, the number one way is a very low-tech way, which is just going through your trash. Make it difficult for those thieves. Next, removing mail from your mailbox promptly. Again, this is for those people that have the mailbox attached to their homes. So make sure you remove it promptly so it's not sitting there for days on end. And even better, invest in a mailbox that has a lock. Secure and protect personal info both at work and at home. Remember, we talked about most of the thieves are actually trusted insiders, people that have easy access to this information. Don't make it easy. It is a secure place and a safe place for you, but also be mindful of others that might be tempted. In your home, similarly, we talked about 16% of the thieves being close family and friends. Don't keep that personal financial information readily available on your kitchen counter. Put it away in a filing cabinet or somewhere under lock and key. Don't tempt them. Passwords. I know we've all heard this, and I know we have so many passwords to manage. There's some great password management systems out there you might want to look into, but keep changing them up. More and more we are seeing organizations are forcing you to change up your password. That's a good thing. And don't have it as something that is very common, that somebody that has a passing knowledge of you and your interests might be able to guess. So think about those passwords, and definitely if you have any passwords that are that is the most common one, please change it immediately after this webinar. Be alert during transactions. So just being mindful of your surroundings. We had an example of you're at the grocery store and you put out your credit card information. Somebody behind you looks like they're just on their phone texting, might be snapping a picture of your Visa card right there out in the open. So just be mindful of what's happening around you. So a little bit of paranoia is not necessarily a bad thing. And never provide personal confidential information. So if you get an email, if you get a text, if somebody's calling you on the phone and they're asking you for this information, be very wary when you're giving out this information. Do not click on links from unknown senders, because not only could it be redirecting you to a fake site, it might actually be a malicious site that is putting some sort of malware on your system where now they could be tracking and keeping tabs of all of the keystrokes that you're entering, including your personal financial banking information. Antivirus software, make sure it is up to date so that you can keep track of potential malware that might be put onto your system without you realizing it even. The last one here, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So if you're being given this incredible offer to consolidate all of your debt in a very, very easy low payment interest rate, and all you have to do is give them your financial information, it probably is too good to be true. So be very careful about the kind of information you give out to people you don't know. The second D, detect. So how do you know whether or not something has happened? Would strongly suggest when your credit cards and your bank statements come in, check them immediately. Don't let them sit there for a couple of weeks. You usually have a few weeks before you have to pay them, and they might often sit openly, which they shouldn't be, but they will often sit for a while. Check them right away, because the more time you let the thieves to be able to charge against you, well, that's not good for you. Be cautious when bills don't arrive on time. So yes, we know that there's certain cycles when it comes to the different bills and the payments that come to our home. And if it's out of cycle, if it's not arriving on time, be careful, because somebody might have intercepted it before it got to you. That's when you call your financial institution to inquire about it. Be on the lookout for strange mail that might be coming to your children, because if it's something that they shouldn't be getting, it might be an alert to potentially somebody doing something against their accounts. And check your credit report. The two big agencies within Canada are Equifax and TransUnion. So check them. You have the right to get your free credit report on an annual basis. That's free. What I suggest is taking it a step further, where you actually do some credit monitoring to make sure that there are no accounts that are being opened or no loans that are being opened in your name that you did not initiate. And the last D is defend. So now if something does happen, what do you do? First of all, report it to the institution. If it's your bank or if it's the credit card company, let them know immediately so they can put an alert on your account. Report it to those two reporting agencies, the Equifax and TransUnion credit unions, because they can also put an alert and make sure that if anything further was requested, you will be notified first before it's approved. File a police report. And then a really good resource that we have within Canada is called the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. You've got the phone number as well as the link there. Lots of great information as to how to identify different types of fraud, protect yourself, how to report, including a very easy to use online fraud report system that they have. So we'll wrap up this presentation and move into Q&As with a last word of wisdom from none other than William Shakespeare. Who steals my purse steals trash, but he that filches for me my good name makes me poor indeed. Very true then as it is now. So thank you so much for your time. Now we're going to turn to some of the questions that you had. All right, so we'll have time for about 3 or 4 questions. The first one I see here is, you mentioned in your presentation not to conduct any online banking in public Wi-Fi networks. Indeed. Would you recommend the same using banking apps? Great question. So generally speaking, banking apps tend to be more secure than just trying to access your financial information through a browser. That said, I don't want you to let your guard down, because I have seen some reports showcasing some security flaws in banking applications that can be exploited through public Wi-Fi systems. So I tend to always suggest erring on the side of caution when you are using personal financial information. Unless you really have to, wait until you're in a secure network place, not to do it over public Wi-Fi in a cafe, for example. Our next question here is, you mentioned one could go years without knowing their ID has been compromised. What are some signs or things to look out for? So as adults, the usual trigger is that we are denied some sort of opportunity. So you're applying for a loan or a credit card or a job application or a passport, whatever it might be, and you're denied, and you're thinking to yourself, I really should not be denied. That is usually the number one trigger when it comes to adults. The problem, as I mentioned, with children is this is the fastest growing segment for identity thieves, for the victims. The problem is that they might go years because they don't tend to apply for these types of things. So they don't experience that denial. So the things to watch out for, as I mentioned towards the end, is if they start receiving odd mail that a child really shouldn't be receiving. So they're receiving pre-approved credit cards, or they're receiving some information about applying for loans, type of stuff that you really shouldn't be receiving as a child. That can be an alert to you that something might be wrong and to investigate further. Our next question is, I have heard that you can get identity theft insurance. Is it worth getting this type of insurance? Great question. It's a very individual decision. What I would say is read through the fine print, see what they cover, and is it really worth it for you? So they will vary in what they cover. Some will cover out-of-pocket expenses. Some will cover the charges that have been made. Most financial institutions will do that as well. But what they don't tend to cover is your time. If you have to take time off of work, that tends not to be covered. Some will say that they will cover lawyers' fees. Great, but actually it's not very common for you to engage an attorney with this. A lot of the legwork is done by you. So really be careful as to what that fine print is and whether or not it's worth it. Again, what I would tend to emphasize more so is to take a look at some of those credit monitoring plans that you can get through Equifax or TransUnion. They can alert you if there's any request for a new account to be made, a loan being made, or a new bank credit card being opened. They can alert you to that so that you can verify, is this really coming from me? That is definitely worth the investment. And we'll have time for one more question. Why would someone try to steal your Facebook identity? Good question. I've received friend requests from people impersonating friends already in my network. Why would they do that? It is an odd thing, and it's happened to me as well. And basically how this happens is they will take your profile picture, which is publicly available, or any other information as well, whatever you have in your about that is publicly available, or other pictures that are there, and they will recreate a Facebook account to impersonate you. They will then send out a friend request to your friend network. And if they accept, now they have access to your friend's personal information. And we talked about, it's not just everything in the news feed and what they have in the about, but there's a lot of personal information that relates to a lot of the security questions that we use for our personal financial information. They have this information now. And it can even get scarier where they can impersonate you through chats and request meetings and even request money. So there's a lot of reasons and motivations for doing this. If it does happen to you, if you get a request from a friend who is already part of your Facebook friend network, I would suggest contact that friend immediately, let them know this has happened so that they can take action. Action like changing their password, that's the first step, and also notifying other people in their network not to accept that friend request. So thank you for your questions. That's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you once again for joining us today for this online logger lecture. This webinar was recorded and will be archived online on the McMaster YouTube page and will be made available within a few days of this airing. For a complete listing of alumni online and in-person events, visit alumni.mcmaster.ca/event listing. Thank you so much again for joining us, and have a great evening.
Unstructured search, and these algorithms